Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today for this Workflow Advanced session during our FormFest 2025. I'm so excited to see every one of you guys here and get a chance to talk more about some of our Workflow Advanced features. And yeah, just excited to see that. So before I dive in, just a quick reminder, if you guys miss the keynote or anything, all of these sessions will be recorded. So you'll be able to receive that email after, or I think next week is when we'll get that email of all the recorded sessions out to everyone. They'll also be available on our website, so you can check out the recorded sessions there. And also at any point, there is a questions box. I'm not sure where it is on your screen, but somewhere around there is a questions box that you guys can drop questions in as we go along, ending up with a question and answer session at the end. So if you guys don't already know me, my name is Joelle Swanson. I am the product trainer here at FormAssembly. I've been here for about 4 years, and I just love the chance to get to talk to all of our customers and teach them everything I know and train them more on our product. So let's get into today's session. So I'm excited to dive into some of the more advanced ways you can build and manage approval workflows specifically in FormAssembly. We'll start with a quick refresher on what workflow approvals are and why they matter, but don't worry, we're not staying in the basics for too long. We'll then get into different types of approval workflows, such as linear, conditional, first responder, consensus, and escalating, and when each structure makes the most sense in your FormAssembly workflow. I'll also share some of our favorite tips and best practices for designing approval workflows that are not just functional, but scalable and efficient. After that, I'll walk you through a live demo so you can see all of that in action. And of course, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session to make sure you walk away with new ideas and get a clear sense of how to use workflows to solve real problems in your organization. Let's get into it. So, what are FormAssembly's workflow approvals? In short, they give you the power to build checkpoints directly into your workflow. Anywhere along the way, you can insert an approval step to review incoming responses and control what happens next based on that decision, whether it's an approval or denial. So why approvals take your workflow to the next level? Approval steps let you decide who needs to review a response before it moves forward and what happens based on their choices. You're not just capturing data anymore, you're shaping how it flows, who touches it, and when. So when exactly should you use workflow approvals? You've probably seen approval workflows shine in processes that involve compliance, oversight, or peer decision-making. Think applications, budget reviews, program sign-offs. They help ensure the right eyes are on the data at the right time before any final action is taken. One classic use case, expense reimbursement. Let's say an employee submits their reimbursement form. The workflow kicks off with a manager approval. If the amount is high, maybe it needs to escalate to a director. Once it clears those checks, it moves to accounting for processing. With approvals built into your workflow, nothing slips through the cracks, and you don't need separate manual processes to handle exceptions. Now, let's break it down into the different ways you can structure approval workflows in FormAssembly. Depending on your process, your data, and your stakeholders, there are several powerful patterns to choose from. Each one helps you tailor the flow to exactly what your team and your compliance needs require. First up, linear approvals. This is your classic step-by-step approach. Each reviewer signs off in a specific order. For example, a manager, then a director, then an executive. It's clean, predictable, and perfect for processes where hierarchy matters, and each step needs a clear handoff. Then we have conditional approvals. When you add conditional logic to approvals, your approval path adjusts based on the data in the response. For instance, a budget under 500 might need just one sign-off, but anything over that could automatically route to additional approvers. It's flexible and smart, especially for workflows with thresholds, categories, or risk levels. Another example could be for nonprofit grant applications. Responses could be routed based on the applicant location, funding requested. Local teams could review those small grants, while larger ones go straight to regional leadership. allowing you to set those processes up to fit those exact needs. Now, if time is of the essence for you, in first responder approvals, the request is sent to a group, and the first person to take action decides the outcome. It's a great option when anyone in the group has the authority to approve, and you don't want to hold things up waiting on a single person. Our own knowledge team, that I am on, uses this model for internal training resources and requests, or resource requests. So whichever team lead is available reviews and improves the request first, cutting wait time from days to minutes to wait for a response from our team. Then we have consensus approvals. And consensus approvals, everyone in a group reviews the request in parallel, and you don't move forward until all required approvals are in and a consensus is reached. This is ideal when decisions need alignment across multiple teams or departments. It reduces confusion and keeps everyone accountable. Just remember that with this method, some bottlenecks can happen if too many approvers are out of office. After all, consensus workflows are only as fast as your slowest approver. If there's a chance of this happening, you can share your workflow with a colleague via collaboration and add extra consensus approvers to vital workflows as needed. Then we have escalating approvals. Escalating approvals route requests to higher level reviewers based on the priority or criteria that you define upfront. For example, if a request is marked as high priority, or if a calculated field flags it as high risk, it can automatically bypass the standard approval chain and go straight to a manager or director. It's a smart way to fast track critical items and ensure the right level of oversight from the start. For example, a university might want to use an escalation logic to handle student incident reports. Low-level incidents can go straight to student services, but anything that involves safety triggers could be auto-escalated to a dean without the student ever knowing the process shifted behind the scenes. Now, before we continue on, I do have a quick poll for you guys. So if you haven't submitted a poll before, you'll just click on the answer that you would like. So the poll today I'd like to ask you is, which type of approval workflow do you see yourself using? I could see so many benefits of using any of these 5 types of approval workflows for a number of processes and ways to collect those responses. So I'm curious to see if there's anything specific that you think might work for your use cases. We'll give you guys a few minutes to submit your answer to the polls. I do see a couple questions come in. Feel free to continue submitting those answers, and I'll get to them here at the end of the session as well. So feel free to do that. But yeah, just a few more seconds to get I usually like to wait until about 50% of the attendees have submitted the response. But personally, I think for me, it'd be hard to say which one I would favor over another, just because I've used pretty much all of these approval workflows at some point or other, because they can be widely applied. So I'm curious to see what you guys all think. Okay, I think that's probably good enough. So let's see. Okay, conditional. Yes, definitely. I agree there. It looks like 70%. The conditional one is so versatile. And honestly, the escalating is just a version of the conditional already, but then you can take that and really make use of all of those other ones within that conditional. So I'm glad to see that you guys all think the conditional is the one you see yourselves using the most. So now that we've seen that, let's talk about how to build approval workflows that don't just work, they work well. These best practices will help you keep things fast, clean, and frustration-free. First off, determine the ideal number of approvers for each step. Too many approvers, your process drags. Too few, you run the risk of missing something important. The goal is to identify who truly needs to sign off at each step and skip the rest. Next, eliminate unnecessary approval stages to avoid delays. Every approval stage adds time, and time is money. Take a step back and ask, does this approval actually add value? If the answer is no, it might be time to cut it because streamlined workflows get completed, not complicated, completed faster and with fewer blockers. Then collaborate with stakeholders for a high-level workflow overview. Looping in key teams when designing your workflow can save you a ton of rework later. Early collaboration helps you catch edge cases, flag potential conflicts, and identify where automation can replace manual steps. If you're already doing most of this, amazing. That's the foundation, but don't forget the best workflows aren't just about automation, they're about alignment. Workflows are intended to reflect your internal processes, your team dynamics, and your organization's priorities. A strong approval workflow doesn't just move data from A to B, it makes sure the right people are involved, decisions are made faster, and everyone has the visibility they need to move forward with confidence. So as you're building, always ask yourself, does this workflow support better decisions? And on that note, let's get to the fun part, the demo. So I'm happy to walk you through how to build an approval workflow for a sales rep. And those sales reps need to apply discounts there in Salesforce. Give me just a moment to share my screen and then we can get that demo started. Maybe. There we go. Didn't want to work there for a second. Okay, sorry about that delay. So in this example, sales reps can't directly edit the discount field in Salesforce due to their permissions. They're allowed to offer discounts, however, up to a certain amount on their own, but anything beyond that needs and requires approval. That approval gets routed to a manager or team lead once it's approved. The data is pushed to Salesforce. This creates a streamlined process with a clear audit trail while still empowering reps to move quickly. So let's walk through this approval workflow. So to start off with, I already have a pre-built invoice form here for my sales rep that is connected to Salesforce using the Salesforce connector. Now I'm going to go ahead and build the logic around it to handle the different approval paths. First, I'm going to go ahead and add in a conditional step here. Now this conditional step will allow me to add in those 3 pathways for the 3 different ways that the sales reps need that approval. So the first pathway is going to be if it is under 5%, the sales reps do not need permission or approval, so they're able to just go ahead and send that data straight onto Salesforce without any other additional tasks or anything. The second pathway is going to be between that 5 to 10%. So we'll add in that conditional pathway here, and it'll be between 5 and 10. Nope, not 100, 10. And then on this pathway, I need to add in an approval step. So for this approval step, it can go to either the team lead or the manager. Whoever gets to it first can have that permission to approve it. So we'll do the sales invoice, allow comments, go in here to the assignments. We'll say it'll be me and Kayla, who are going to be the team lead and manager who is approving this. So with this, it's whoever gets to it first, that first to respond. And they can go ahead and send that off to get that approval. If it is approved, I'm going to add a go-to step right here. And with this go-to step, I'm going to actually direct it to this pre-built Salesforce connector right here. And what this does is it'll allow the response to automatically route to Salesforce without me needing to rebuild that Salesforce connector, avoiding duplicate connector steps and keeping everything here in my workflow tidy. If the discount is denied, we'll just go ahead and trigger an email notification to the sales rep, notifying them the discount wasn't approved. Then I'll come back up here to the conditional and map the final path. So this final path is if the discount amount is over 10%. And with this over 10%, it's going to be that it is going to require manager approval before that can move on in the process. So we'll add an approver step. Again, select that sales invoice, allow to leave comments. And this time, Kayla, the manager, has to review this sales invoice before it can go on to Salesforce. But if she does approve it, we can again add in a go-to step to that Salesforce connector, thereby again keeping it nice and tidy, and also add in a notification email to that sales rep. Now, this is just one way to use that conditional approval workflow that we just talked about, and also combining it with the escalation, allowing it saying, okay, hey, here's the 3 different pathways and what they need to do for each one. And if it's an escalating one over that 10%, it goes direct to the manager to get that approval. And click save. Always don't forget to click save. And that is the full setup for this conditional escalating workflow, approval workflow. So what we've just built is a great example of how you can combine conditional logic, approval steps, and go-to steps to create something that's not just functional, but scalable and strategic. It empowers those sales reps while ensuring those larger accounts go through the right approval channel. The workflow remains easy to maintain thanks to that conditional logic and the reusable steps we've added. So if you're already building workflows like this, I hope this gave you some ideas for how to simplify or scale what you have. And throughout this session, we've looked at the different types of approval workflows, from linear to conditional, consensus, and escalation, and talked about when to use each one. We've talked through the best practices for building efficient workflows, like choosing the right number of approvers, cutting unnecessary steps, and involving key stakeholders early on. The big takeaway: approval workflows in Form Assembly aren't just about compliance. They're a powerful way to align your processes with how your team actually works. And with just a few smart steps, you can build workflows that are flexible, efficient, and easy to maintain over time. Now, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And then I do also think I have Kayla. Kayla, do you mind hopping on and helping me feed questions so that I can focus on answering instead of scrolling and finding the next question?
Totally. Yeah, because there's so many good questions already. So let's take this one first. This one's a pretty easy one to answer. So Jackie was actually asking about, do approvers need to have Form Assembly licenses?
So there's actually kind of 2 points. So they just need the basic license to log into Form Assembly, and they need an approval license. And that approver license and basic license will give them the ability to log into Form Assembly and access the approver task list to see those approval tasks. They don't need the full standard license. They just need the login and approver license, and that's all they need to access and approve those tasks. But on the reverse side, the demo that I just did, the actually building out the workflow, anyone who has the ability to build workflows is able to add and create those approval steps. They do not need to have an approval license to build a workflow with an approver step.
Awesome. Thank you for that one. And thank you for the question, Jackie. So we've got one here from Nancy asking, so if somebody has to leave or goes on vacation, is it pretty easy to change the assignments in the workflow?
Oh, it is super easy to change those, Nancy. All you have to do is just go into the workflow and be like, say, hey, this person is out on maternity, paternity leave. They're going to be gone for 6 weeks. Let's just take them out of the approval step, and then we'll add in someone who is working to replace them during their maternity, paternity leave. Or if they're just going on vacation for 2 weeks and you're like, okay, this is a critical process to our needs. We can't wait 2 weeks until they get back. You can go in and change that. Either you, or if you have that collaboration setting on your workflow, anyone that is part of that process can go in and make those changes to update the workflow so it's constantly meeting your needs based off of if anyone is out of office or something.
Perfect. And okay, so we've got another question from Nancy. I can actually answer this one. So, Joelle, if you need any water or anything, this is a good moment. Nancy's asking if you can create a group of users so that you don't have to like select all of the names when you're assigning approvers, or require approval through users not inside form assembly. So I'm going to put it this way. So the groups of users, that's a great feature request. I would love for you to submit that, by the way, as well as your use case. Awesome. Please submit it. We love reading those. But in the kind of respect of requiring approval for users not in form assembly, but in Salesforce, that is possible. The thing is, it's not related to the approvals inside the workflow. So that's going to be pretty specific to your use case, but I will say like there are ways to do that. I highly recommend reaching out to our support team on that one. They can help with your kind of specific use case. But yeah, I definitely recommend reaching out to them on that one. Now, Katie has a fantastic one. So Katie's asking about cloning connectors. Katie mentioned, obviously the go-to step, sending them to the identical connector. But if you need, one field value to be different, are there ways to duplicate the connector, or do you have to totally rebuild it?
Yes, I can answer that, Katie. So we actually have on I don't know how much, so little secret data, but we do have on the roadwork to clone a step. So I can't say too much more, but we are working on that with our product team to get that out to our customers. So definitely keep an eye out for that, because I agree. It is so useful to be able to have that just cloned over. If you need to have the exact same connector, there's just one thing you need to change. It's a lot of work to rebuild that from scratch.
Yeah, it's a great point. And again, we do love feature requests. We actually read all of them, so always feel free. But yeah, stay tuned. We like announcing things too. So Christine actually has a great question here about controlling the link expiration settings. Is it possible to turn off link expiration or extend the expiration period?
So the good thing about approvals, if you're accessing it from the email, the link will expire, but that link also does direct to log into Form Assembly, and you'll actually complete the approval task directly in your Form Assembly account. So those will never expire here for the approval tasks. You'll log in, you'll see all the lists of the approval tasks, and you can automatically go in and just approve the ones. As for link expiration, that is kind of more of a security feature. So probably will not have in the future an ability to remove that link expiration for the specific things that we have it enabled on, just to keep that security maintained for all of our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. That security aspect is obviously something we care so much about. I will say that when it comes to any sort of link expiration, there's ways to refresh it, if somebody's link does expire. So obviously we make sure that they're not going to get totally locked out. But yeah, it's a very important security setting for sure.
Yes, good point, Kayla.
Oh yeah. Helena has a great one here. So Helena's asking if it's possible for a workflow to be edited by all admin users.
It is totally possible. The workflow collaboration, there's not a limit to the number of collaborators you can add to a workflow. You can add in just one or two if you're like, hey, I'm on a team of 3. Only the 3 of us need to have access to edit this workflow. Or if you're just like, all admins need to have access to this workflow, it is a business critical workflow, you can add all of those admins to your workflow and have everyone have that same level of access.
Absolutely. And I've got a really good question here from Lauren. So it's about the different types of approvals in here. When you're selecting the different types of approvals, obviously there's going to be circumstances where each different type is more important based on your use case. In particular, and I actually see that there's another question similar to this. If there's people who are out on vacation, something that was mentioned earlier, which type of approvals do you think would be best to kind of accommodate for those scenarios?
To accommodate for those scenarios, it'll kind of depend on your use case specifically, but the first to respond is a really great process approval workflow to use. If you're worried of a lot of people going on vacation in and out of the office, you can use that first to respond and assign that approval step to, say, 5 people. And whoever is the first to respond of those 5 people, the step automatically moves on. So even if all 4 of those 5 people are out, as long as one person is still in, you'll still be able to have that process move on. The other options, it would require probably just a little bit of like manual adjustment, going in and being like, okay, the manager in this linear approval is out of office for a week. They're on vacation, but we can't have this workflow just sitting in tandem for a week. You can go into that manager approval step and switch out to someone who can come in and approve it so that the linear approval can go on to the director and then VP or whoever is on in your process.
Yeah, that's a great way to handle it. It gave me an extra thought too while you were saying it, which is why we talk about these things. You all come up with ideas together. One other option there too is with collaboration. One of the major benefits of workflow is that multiple people can be collaborating on a workflow together. So, if there's a circumstance, for example, where you need to change the approvers on a step because someone's going to be out, you could have more than one person able to go in and update those approval names, because that's the ideal part of workflow, is working together to make sure that the process runs smoothly. So that's always available.
And to expand on that a little bit too, if you have the collaboration, if say you're the workflow owner and you need to go out of office, but you also know, oh, well, I'm out of office, so-and-so is also going to be out of office, but they don't need to have that permission switched until they go out of office. You can collaborate with someone and they can switch over whenever the approver goes out of office for you. So you don't have to worry about doing work when you're on vacation. Who wants to do that?
Yeah, nobody wants to work on vacation. That's a bit silly. Looks like I think we've got time for maybe one more question. So let me grab one let's do this one. So we've got a question here basically asking, when it comes to approval workflows, obviously you showed one use case today. Are there any other use cases that you can think of off the top of your head that use either multiple types of approvals or that you think are very vital to, like your business process?
Oh, that is a hard question.
I thought of an answer, so if you need, I can answer it too.
Thank you. There is so many ways I could see workflow approvals, and I have seen them be used. I've seen them routing for like volunteer applications where it's just one central form for a regional hospital, and they needed to have those volunteer applications go to all of the different hospitals in their region. Obviously, it's not one person handling those thousands of applications for the volunteers. They routed the workflow approval to be to the different regional offices and the volunteer coordinators there so that they wouldn't have to be like managing one person, the thousands of volunteer applications. It went specifically to that region, and that volunteer coordinator was able to just be like, oh, okay, great. I have 200 volunteer applications for this region, and take care of that there.
I do love that one. I'm going to squeeze one more in. Mithri, I believe, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, made a really great point here in the Q&A box that they'd like to see more advanced workflow even outside of approvals. So I do want to just note one really fun little detail here. When it comes to advanced workflows, the best thing you can do is use all these different types of steps together. So here we actually saw most of the types of steps, including the conditionals and the approvals working together, the go-to steps sending you to different parts of the workflow. Workflow is extremely flexible in the best possible way. So we're hoping that this kind of helps spark some ideas. But if you want to see any particular parts or more use cases, you're actually talking to like the people in the knowledge team who do that. So if you want to just throw into the Q&A box any other webinars you want to see on this in the future, like I know a person and it's me. We could put those on the list. So feel free to toss those in if you want to. But yes. I think we're out of time for questions. Joelle, do you want to wrap it up?
Sure. Thank you, Kayla, for helping on with those questions. So before everyone goes off to their next session or on their day, if they're not planning to attend any more user conference FormFest sessions today, just a quick reminder, the session was recorded, so be sure to be on the lookout if you missed anything or would like to hear anything again. I know that I always like to hear things a couple times to really absorb it. So you can check that out later. But if you are interested in a deeper dive or seeing a little bit more details, we do have that resource center. You can check out materials there. You can also schedule a personalized demo with our sales team to see exactly how the workflow features or anything else could fit your exact needs. So just thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I see you in other sessions. So thank you so much, everyone.